People often ask me how I ended up working with birds of prey. Well, today I'm going to tell you the story of how I got into falconry and how I've become a professional full-time display falconer. Before working with animals, I worked for a number of years in a high school as a theatre technician. I've also done a lot of acting in the past. In fact, I still do shows today, mostly amateur though. And I also had a mobile disco business for about 10 years. Now, these are all relevant facts because they've all helped me in various ways with the work I do today. I'd been thinking about working with animals for quite a while, maybe a bit of a career change, and it was around early 2010 when I started to look around, and I discovered that Light Water Valley Bird of Prey Centre was looking for people to add to their team. So I went up, applied, got chatting to the guy who ran the place, and I told him all about my performance experience, all the work I'd done in shows and so on. And because of that, I instantly got the work doing flying shows in the arena they had there, which was quite amazing. And I flew a barn owl, an eagle owl, and an African vulture. That is kind of the backwards way of learning things, really. I feel in some ways it would have made sense to sort of start with the basics, really, of cleaning aviaries and, doing the dirty work first, building up to doing actual flying shows. But I guess they just needed me in that role to actually take on the flying displays, and it really was such an incredible introduction into working with birds of prey. So I worked full-time at the centre for just over a year, and then the owners were changing and sort of things were changing and personal circumstances. I decided to have a go at setting up my own bird of prey business. So what I did is I borrowed a few birds from the centre, and I actually took an owl on the glove into a lot of primary schools and said, "Hi, my name's Ryan, I can offer you a fantastic school visit," and within a week I got about a dozen bookings. And then I thought, can I get something set up a bit more full-time, which is when I thought about operating a bird of prey display in York. Considering I'd spent quite a few years working at York Dungeon as an actor, I'd seen exactly how much tourism there is in York all throughout the year. So I started making lots of phone calls and making meetings happen, and I managed to get a bird of prey display in the Coppergate Centre, as it were, which was underneath a tree, a little gardened, walled off area, and that ran for a couple of years, doing the owl handling format and doing talks and presentations and getting the donations in. And then in 2013 we had a churchyard we're in, and in 2014 is when we started in the museum gardens, and we've now been there for over 10 years. So we're now coming up towards the end of our 13th year operating a bird of prey display in York. And what a location! So many tourists from all around the world. We have customers from not just the UK but Australia, America, Africa, Europe, South America, you name it, they have come and held our birds and seen them fly. It was when running the York display that people started to come and say, "Oh, can you possibly do a flying show or static display at our country fete?" And that's what started the other external outdoor shows that we do. And people also come up and said, "Oh, can you do a care home visit?" And okay, yeah, we can do that. And before you know it, we're doing kids parties, and we're doing more school visits and nurseries and all sorts of other events. So the business has organically grown over the years to what it is today, and I'm pleased to say that's what's made me a full-time falconer. But there's a lot more to it than that. To say I've learnt a great deal over the years about falconry, about business, about people, about a work-life balance, about myself, would be a great understatement, because I really have so much. I went into the business thinking I know enough to start my own bird of prey business, and the reality was I just didn't. There were certain things I just didn't learn at the centre. So I kind of learned on the job, and very, very quickly as well. How to properly clean an aviary, for example. How to file a beak down, or how to check for bumblefoot. All these different things that I've learned over the years. I read books, I went to centres and and talked to different falconers and learnt as much as I possibly could, and have made loads of mistakes over the years, but I'm getting better all the time. And this is the attitude I feel that everyone should really have in whatever you're doing. It's that self-improvement, that constant self-improvement you should be aiming for, because that makes you a better person, and if you're running a business, especially with animals, it makes that actually better as well. There's an old proverb that says, a person who does not know themselves by the age of 40 has lost. Well, I am 40 now, and I believe I do know myself. And what I mean by that is I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm not good at, I know what I like doing and what I don't like doing, and there is a correlation between the two there. And essentially, having a business means I can afford to look at the costings and pay people to do the things that I'm not very good at or don't like doing. And this is far better than me trying to force myself to be good at things that I'm just not great at. My main skill set is doing flying shows, school visits, presenting the information, flying the birds, that kind of thing. Alright, I still clean aviaries and boxes out and do all those other jobs as well. However, it's always best if you can figure out a way of giving yourself the work you can do best and let other people help you where necessary. And I really could not do everything I do without my wonderful team members, both paid staff and volunteers, who help me out massively with all the work we do. The evolution of where I've kept my birds has been an interesting one too. When I first started, I was just keeping the birds in the back garden. We rented a house, me and my ex-partner, we set up some aviaries at the top of the garden there. I think we had about 6 birds to start with. Then when we moved from that property to buy our own place, we decided we would have somewhere else to keep the birds. So they lived on a sort of farm. We had some stables actually we built aviaries in, and that worked for a few years. And then we moved to a wooded area, and that was wonderful for flying the birds free in the woods there, and nice and sort of remote as it were, plenty of space. But then what happened a couple of years ago is that me and my wife at the time decided to separate, so I needed to find somewhere to live, and also, for completely different reasons, my birds needed somewhere else to live as well, because the property where we were keeping them had new owners, and they gave me till the end of the year to find somewhere else to go. And in a way, it meant I had to, excuse the pun, kill 2 birds with 1 stone and find a place where I could actually live and keep my birds at the same time, which brings me to this place. I've been here now for just over 2 years, and it's great having the birds right outside around the property, because I can work with them whenever I want, first thing in the morning, late at night, during the day, whenever, and I have staff coming and going, I can see them, I know what they're doing and things like that. But all 4 venues, all 4 that we've had have never been perfect, because we've always had to build aviaries around the trees or around the building or in that stable block there, whatever it might be, as opposed to having just one big flat piece of land where we could build exactly what we want. I have a design in my head, and we are hoping there'll be a 5th and final place to keep the birds in the coming years. So I am very lucky and very privileged to be doing something that is a passion of mine as a career, and I never forget that. I thank my lucky stars every day, you could say, for that very reason. However, it isn't possible to just be passionate about your business for it to actually work. You've kind of got to become a businessman as well. So I think it was around the end of June in the first year of trading, so we'd only been doing it a few months, and business had got really busy, and I remember my now ex-wife saying at the time, how much turnover has there been this month? And I said, well, add it up, wow, about £10,000, which was incredible to make that kind of money out of handling birds and flying birds at events and things. So a great month to have. So then said, how much can you afford to pay as a wage this month? How much can you draw from the business? So I did my calculations, took my costs off, and noticed that there was about £5 left, because I'd spent so much money on insurance, signage, more birds, aviary building, that I hadn't tracked it, and I realised, right, I'm going to have to start really looking at this properly and really get my business head on, as it were. So I had to start learning about costs and cash flow and how to market properly and how to do your tax affairs and things like that. I mean, me and my ex had this idea of buying a house, and so we thought, well, maybe we can save 7 or 8 grand a year. And then I went to my accountant She said, oh well, your tax bill this year is £6,500. So that just wipes out the whole idea of saving for a mortgage. Luckily, a few years later, we did buy a property. It's nice to be a homeowner, but it's a lot of hard work, and a lot of that is the business thing. In fact, it's only till more recently that I've actually become better at the business side of it. You know, I've recently went to a 2-day class all about business in London, actually, to learn a lot more about how to run a successful enterprise, because I need to think about the future a little bit here and what's going to happen when I get too old to go out and fly birds of prey. I came up with the name Owl Adventures quite early on, and the idea is it would be a good name for a product we could sell, as in have an owl adventure, like a flying experience. Well, we do have flying experiences, we don't call them that. The name just became a good name for the business essentially, but we started to learn a few years into it how the name really suits the lifestyle, because it's such an unpredictable lifestyle, being a falconer or a display falconer, and lots of things happen that you just don't expect. I've got so many stories, and we've often said that one day I'll be in my care home, in theory, you know, being looked after by some lovely people, and I'll be sat there regaling them all these stories of these flying shows we used to do, of tracking falcons that have flown miles away, of all these different experiences, and the care staff will be saying, gosh, he's got quite the imagination. But the reality is that it'll all be true. So I'm really interested to see what the next 10, 20, 30 or more years brings. And one thing I do know for sure is that the decision to become a full-time display falconer really has been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.